And welcome, everybody, to a brand new venture that we are excited about here. Trey Wingo here with a brand new show that we call simply Straight Facts Homie. Why do we call it that? Well, first of all, that's one of the greatest lines in the history of the NFL when I've covered the NFL, when Randy Moss, then Vikings wide receiver, was asked how he's going to pay a fine to the league office of $50,000. And the cameraman said, "You're going to write a check?" He goes, "Hell no, straight cash, homie." He's going to send him cash. And that was Randy cutting through the bullshit and basically saying, that's what we're going to do. And that's what we're going to do on this show. We are going to cut through the noise and the arguments and the hot takes with Z's and the opinions and just give you the facts, because we want you as a sports fan to be better informed. We want you to know what's going on. We don't want you to drown yourself in what other people think based on their feelings. What we want to do is give you the straight shoot approach. If we could have a theme song that wouldn't be taken down, it would be that one line from Lizzo, "Feeling good as hell." Woo, we are tired of the bullshit, okay? We're not going to do that here. We are going to give it to you straight, and we're going to back up what we say with facts. So as this is our inaugural show, let's start with the thing that has dominated the NFL this offseason for reasons that I cannot understand. I do not understand, nor will I ever even try to understand, but I acknowledge that it is something that all of you are fascinated with, and that's Shador Sanders. He's going to make the team, and every move that the Browns have made regarding Shador has set off Shador mania, Shador syndrome. People are championing this guy as if they believe he's Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Peyton Manning all rolled into one, okay? And I'll give you a great example of this. When he didn't play on that potential game-winning drive in the Browns' preseason finale, people literally, they went to their social posts. And these are people who I actually have some respect for, and said things like, the Browns are sabotaging Shador Sanders' chances of success. Kevin Stefanski has it in for Shador Sanders. The NFL needs to investigate what's going on with the Cleveland Browns and Shador Sanders. Stop it. None of that is true. None of it is true. Let's just break down what actually happened, okay? There was an opportunity on the last drive of the game, potentially a 2-minute drill, that Shador Sanders was not allowed to play. They put in Snoop Huntley. Now, why did they do that? Well, first of all, when the Browns signed Snoop Huntley, former Pro Bowler with the Ravens at quarterback this summer, I said at the time, guys, you understand he's just a camp body, right? You understand that the only reason they signed Snoop is because they need a body for camp, because Joe Flacco was hurt, Kenny Pickett was hurt, at one point, Dylan Gabriel was hurt. They needed bodies to take reps. And I took all kinds of heat. How dare you disrespect Snoop Huntley this way? He's a former Pro Bowler. Yeah, I know. I also know that he had no chance of making the team, and they needed somebody to run plays for them in camp so they could get the players that were going to make the team ready. Okay? So keep that in mind. So in that preseason finale, they gave an opportunity for Snoop to play and run that final drive. Didn't work out, wasn't a really good drive, but they gave him an opportunity to put something out there on film. You know who else did this? Bill Belichick did this in 2013. In the Patriots preseason finale, I think it was against the Jets, in 2013, he played Tim Tebow for the entire second half. Now, why did he do that? Because Bill and everybody else in that Patriots organization knew that Tim Tebow was not going to make the team. He was not going to be on their final 53-man roster. And guess what? He wasn't. He was released. Bill did that because he wanted Tim to have something on tape, and they wanted him to have something that he could show to other teams in case they had an issue arise with their quarterback situation. It didn't happen. Tim was never picked up, and he wasn't signed again in the NFL until Urban Meyer, his college coach, had the brilliant idea of saying, hey, you know what, Tim? You were so good at quarterback in the NFL, which he wasn't. We're going to have you change positions and be a tight end and we're going to sign you to a contract, and we're going to play you at a position you haven't played, and you haven't played football in 6 or 7 years. And of course, it went miserably, and he had to be cut because the team knew he wasn't going to make it. He never should have been signed in the first place. But that's a separate issue. The point I'm making is Bill Belichick went out of his way to try and help Tim, to give him an opportunity to put something on tape in case an injury arose, which happens every year in the preseason, and maybe someone will want to latch on with Tebow. That didn't happen. That's exactly what Kevin Stefanski did here. He knew Snoop had no chance of making the team. So what he wanted to do in his final preseason game was give him an opportunity, potentially, to put something out there on tape to remind people that, hey, at one time, Snoop did some pretty good things for the Baltimore Ravens and played in the playoff game and did some things okay, just to remind them, okay, in case something goes wrong, you have a guy, and this is an opportunity for him to showcase his wares. It was not an attempt to sabotage Shador Sanders, because what happens after that? Snoop Huntley is cut. And oh, by the way, the Raiders have an injury to Aiden O'Connell. So suddenly, they need a quarterback. And the Cleveland Browns have said all along, we're going to keep 4. We want 4, including Joe Flacco, who's going to be the starter. I don't care what you say. Joe Flacco has to be the starter to start the season. And if then they go 1-5 or 2-4 in their first 6 games, then you maybe turn it over. But Kevin Stefanski needs to win games. So Joe Flacco is the right choice to start a quarterback. So when Aiden O'Connell goes down with a broken wrist, suddenly Kenny Pickett, who was the backup quarterback for the Browns, becomes extremely valuable and a commodity. And because the Browns have said all along, hey, we're keeping all 4, that increases the value that they want in a return trade for Kenny Pickett. So then they make the trade. Kenny Pickett goes to the Raiders. The Browns get some compensation and draft picks. What does that tell you? It tells you Shador Sanders has already made the team, okay? So he wasn't sabotaged in his attempt to make the team. He'd already made the team. If he hadn't made the team, they probably would have put Shador out there to see what he could do in a 2-minute drill. He made the team on his first preseason start against Carolina when he played really well. He did not play well in the preseason finale. Granted, some of that was because of the players around him, but he also did a lot of things that were bad habits for him in Colorado, running around, holding onto the ball too long. Sometimes the best outcome of play is an incomplete pass. It's better than an interception, and it's better than a 14 or 15-yard sack. Sometimes that's the best outcome, and quarterbacks need to understand that. So when they traded away Kenny Pickett, it told you 2 things. One, Shador had made the team, so there was no sabotaging, yet then the delusional factor out there takes it a step further as well. They're not giving him a chance to start. He was never going to be the starter. They've been telling you that since the first day of training camp, where he was 4th. He was 4th on the depth chart, behind Joe Flacco, behind Kenny Pickett, behind Dillon Gabriel. He was 4th. He never was going to start. Now, this may upset some of you because you think he should have been the starter. That's not important. That doesn't matter. Your opinion about what Shador Sanders should be is irrelevant. Do you know why? Because you're not running a football team. You're not a head coach on a football team. Now, you could say the Cleveland Browns have a history of not knowing what they're doing, and the NFL has a long history of screwing up the quarterback position. And all of that is true. But that still doesn't change the fact that this is the way the Cleveland Browns have seen Shador Sanders since they drafted him in the 5th round. Let's take it one step further. Then the delusional Shador Sanders camp people will say, well, he wasn't given the same opportunity as Dillon Gabriel to compete for potentially the 3rd or 2nd string job, which looks like Dillon is right now because of the trade of Kenny Pickett. And to that I say, yeah, he wasn't. Do you know why? Because he was drafted, Dillon was drafted in the 3rd round. Shador was drafted in the 5th round, which means as an organization, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's the right idea or not, they have more invested in developing Dillon Gabriel than they do in Shador Sanders. So they are, of course, going to give Dillon Gabriel more opportunities. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it is. And you need to see that. It's like when Brad Pitt got bitten by Tom Cruise in Interview with a Vampire, and he opened his eyes and saw the world for the first time with his vampire eyes, how very different it was. You all need to start looking at this thing through realistic scopes, okay? Everything the Browns have told you since when those two quarterbacks were drafted, since how they were stacked on the depth chart, told you that whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant. They told you this is what they believe. They believe Dylan Gabriel has a better shot at becoming an NFL quarterback than Shador Sanders. Now, they may be wrong. It's Cleveland. They've been wrong a lot, but that doesn't take away from the fact that this is what they've been telling you all summer. You just didn't want to believe it. You just didn't want to listen. And yes, the NFL gets it wrong all the time. For example, the Seahawks, the year they drafted Russell Wilson in the third or fourth round, I think it was the fourth round, they had already signed Matt LaFleur to be their, Matt Flynn from Green Bay to a big offseason contract to be their starting quarterback. But by the time the regular season had rolled around, they had seen enough from Russell Wilson to make him the starter. There was never an indication at any point during this summer that the Cleveland Browns saw enough to not only make Shador Sanders the starter, to move him off fourth on the depth chart. The fourth on the depth chart was the most important number for Shador Sanders the entire season, because the preseason games are a reward for how the coaches believe you have played in practice, how you have picked up on the offense, how you have understood what they want you to do. Now, Shador still has an opportunity to turn this thing around, and because it's Cleveland and Joe Flacco is 40, they're probably going to lose some games and things will rise up the depth chart. I would expect Shador Sanders at some point this season to see the field. But two things were undeniable. He was never going to be the week one starter, and he was never really in danger of not making the team. So all these crazy theories, and the NFL needs to be investigated, and Kevin Stefanski doesn't know what he's doing. Kevin Stefanski, two-time coach of the year in a very short period as a head coach. 2 times head coach of the year. Ivy League educated. You're telling me all of a sudden he doesn't know how to read quarterbacks? He doesn't know how to understand what's best for his team? Because if you believe that, then you have to believe the conspiracy was to make Kevin Stefanski the 2-time coach of the year. You have to take away everything. So if you want to believe in this incredibly complicated league-wide conspiracy theory to hold Shador Sanders down, whose Colorado teams went 13-12, by the way, in his years there, then you have to believe that Kevin Stefanski doesn't know what he's doing. He never should have been coach of the year twice. He never should have had the success he's had, getting the Cleveland Browns to a playoff appearance a couple of years ago, and also a couple of years ago when they had Baker Mayfield as their. You have to believe all of that doesn't matter. And how far gone do you have to be in this Shador Sanders camp to believe that all of that is true? It doesn't make any sense. Now, the Browns on many levels don't make any sense. And again, the NFL has been proven wrong time and time again, whether it was Kurt Warner, undrafted Hall of Famer, whether it was undrafted Tony Romo, who went on to have really good seasons with the Dallas Cowboys, whether it was Tom Brady. We all know where he was picked and eventually became the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. The NFL gets it wrong all the time. That's not what this is about. What this is about is understanding what the Browns were telling you from the start. Shador was always going to make the team, and he was never going to be the starting quarterback based on what they believe. What you believe is completely different, but in Cleveland, they don't care. And that is straight facts only. As we get set to dive into the 2025/26 season, let's break the entire thing down. Delighted to be joined by a 12-year veteran in the NFL, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Pro Bowler, my friend and coworker for many, many years, Mark Schlereth. Stink, what's up, buddy? How are you?
I am doing great, man. Great to be with you as always. Always love talking about the NFL. And since we were work-wise for so many years, it's great to see you kind of face-to-face. I guess this is face-to-face, as face-to-face as we get most of the time.
That is correct. Stink and I worked together for a lot of years, doing a lot of different things. And anyway, and we're doing this again. And if you want no bullshit, he's the guy you want to have on. So let's start Let's go division by division, okay?
Okay.
I think a lot of people are assuming, well, the Eagles were so dominant last year that they're probably going to be dominant again, not only win their division, but also probably represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. Here's where I say the data matters, okay? Here's what I'm going to say, and I need you to tell me whether you think it's going to be in play this year. The NFC East has the longest stretch currently in the NFL of no team repeating as champion. It has not been done in 20 years. 20 years. The last team to do it was the Philadelphia Eagles when they won it 4 years in a row. However, they haven't repeated. Nobody's repeated in this division since 2003, 2004. And a couple of years ago, the Eagles looked like they were in prime position to repeat, and then they fell apart down the stretch. So this streak has a weird way of continuing. Do you think the Eagles this year will break that streak?
I do think they'll break that streak. It's interesting, though, because they lost Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, who is now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. So continuity is always important. And it's one of those things we talk a lot about, but we don't necessarily understand, like when the quarterback and the play caller are in sync. And I used to say this all the time about my time in Denver. Like when we would get into certain situations, I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt, there's 3 plays coming in.
Yeah.
Like we get down in second down and short, like second down and 2-. We're running 18-19 handoff, 14-15 handoff, or QB sneak. 100%, because we were a conversion team. We're like, that's not a shot down. That's a conversion down. Let's wear somebody's ass out. And so, like the Philadelphia Eagles, that continuity is going to be important. Where they do have continuity is within their run game and with their offensive line, their coach. Oh, gosh, all of a sudden, what's their offensive line coach's name?
That's your job.
Yeah, I know. And all of a sudden I lost his name. But anyhow, they have been so good up front and they are so powerful. And I'm telling you, that is when you look at their roster, man for man across the board. When you look at their roster, man for man across the board, they are as good. Howie Roseman has done such a great job of hitting in the draft, not having to chase positions. They are so good that unless they're injured, you have to look at them and say, hey, man, they have got the best roster in that division. Plus, I think Washington maybe takes a step back. They converted 20 of 23 fourth downs last year. They won a bunch of games on some one-score games and last possession games. Dallas, I think, will be better this year, but still, they're the Dallas Cowboys. I have my thoughts about them as well.
Rightfully so, by the way.
And the Giants, listen, I think the Giants are going to be a lot better than people think from a defensive standpoint, but still, the Giants are clearly, I think, the 4th place team in that division. So, yeah, if there was ever a year where that streak is going to get broken, Trey, I think it's this year.
I don't disagree with you, and I have some thoughts on Saquon. I'm just telling you, Eagles fans, right now, we're going to do this in a separate segment with Mark a little bit later. Do not expect another one of those seasons. Every data point and historical precedent suggests that has no chance of happening, so you're going to have to do things a little differently. I agree with you. I think Philadelphia is still the class of the crop. I just think weird things happen in the NFC East that I can't explain sometimes, so it would not surprise me at all if somehow somebody else won that division, but I have to believe going in the Eagles are the prohibitive favorite. You mentioned Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. They got the deal done with Terry McLaurin, which was really smart. I agree with you, though, Mark. I think historically, you're going to see a regression from Jaden Daniels. That's much more likely than a progression this year, even though I think everything they've done this offseason has been absolutely perfect in terms of getting players in like Laramie Tunsil to help shore up that offensive line. I just think if we're being honest about it, you're more likely to see this team take a little step back than a step forward this year.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I said, a bunch of one-score games that went in their favor. Last possession drive, they scored touchdown. And a lot of that, give the players credit, give Dan Quinn a bunch of credit as the head coach, the mindset. But I think it was 20 of 23 fourth down conversions. Come on, that ain't gonna happen. That ain't gonna happen. That's like,
although Dan Campbell loves that idea.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just not gonna happen again. I still think they're a playoff team, but I just don't think they're going to be quite the same caliber that they were last year. And I'm with you. The Tunsil thing makes a lot of sense. They moved the kid that was playing there, the Coleman kid, out to right tackle. Right. I think that makes sense for them. They get Sam Cosmi back, their right guard. I like the young running backs they have. I think they'll be good. I tell you, the other thing that I've loved is sitting down with Cliff Kingsbury the last couple of years or last year and just picking his brain on what'd you do when you were out? What did you learn? Yeah. And essentially going, hey, man, what we did in college with the air raid offense, it just doesn't work in professional football. The hash marks change things. You got to control the middle of the field. The run game is different. And really using that time away after he got fired as the head coach of Arizona to go, what do I have to do to transition this offense into an NFL offense and to make those adjustments with a quarterback, obviously, that can deal from the pocket, but also has that threat of run? I think he's done a really good job and acquitted himself quite well.
Okay, we don't have time to do a whole thing on Dallas because I had a whole thing other I want to talk about Dallas, but they're a mess. I mean, let's just be honest about it, okay? They're a mess. Jerry Jones is the reason they're a mess. Again, we'll get into that. Realistic expectations for them this year, assuming Dak is healthy. And as we're doing this, we have no idea what's going to happen with Micah Parsons, who is, one of the top 5 defensive players in football. Way to go, Jerry. Again, we'll get into that later. What are realistic expectations for you in Dallas?
I think they could make the playoffs. I think they could be a wild card team. I think they could get 3 teams in from that division, like the AFC West last year, 3 teams in that division. So I think they could press. But again, like you said, Trey, I mean, the Micah Parsons thing, you knew Micah Parsons was a star his rookie year.
Correct.
How?
Fix it.
How's it gotten to this point?
Why didn't it come to here? Exactly.
Right. How does every time, whether it's CeeDee Lamb, whether it's Dak Prescott, whether it's Micah Parsons, why does it get to the 11th hour, an emergency? And what that does when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, yes, Jerry Jones, I know the answer. Rhetorical question. But when you look at it, what it does is it keeps you from jumping into free agency.
Yeah.
Right? They've done a good job in the draft. But when you don't jump in, and I get free agency, you're paying A+ money for B- players. I understand how it works. But when you have to plug a hole, that's where you plug a hole. Then you don't chase draft picks. That's how you make mistakes in the draft. When you're like, shoot, we have got to have a left tackle, or we have got to have a quarterback. And so you end up taking a guy that deep down inside isn't the guy, but you're like, well, under our expert tutelage, and if we do this or if we do that, maybe he could be. Like, no, he's never going to be. So yeah, they just consistently, Jerry consistently shoots the franchise in the foot.
Okay, and then there's the Giants, who have sort of shot themselves in the foot the last couple of years. I agree with you. I think they're going to be pretty interesting defensively. I just have no idea what to expect on offense, whether it's going to be Russell, Jameis, or the kid Jackson Dart, who looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think eventually, like I look at kind of the Denver Bronco model. Rip off the Band-Aid, start the kid from the beginning if you truly believe in the kid, and let him have his growing pains. If you look at Bo Nix, the only reason we're not talking about Bo Nix is because of the season that Jaden Daniels had. He threw 29 touchdown passes, which was more than Josh Allen, the MVP. He rushed for 4. They had no rushing game. He was the second leading rusher on the football team. And he played his ass off, and it was a struggle early. But as he progressed, he got better and better and better with that defense to lean on. If Brian Dable can get a little bit of a running game, listen, I know what Jameis is, and I know what Russ is. Correct. And you know what they're not? They're not legitimate NFL starting quarterbacks anymore. Neither. They were both.
That's actually the biggest problem in the league. We have to have 32 starting quarterbacks, and I don't think we have 25.
And I agree with you. Russ was a 3rd rounder, I think. Jameis was a 1st overall pick. But, it's the Peter principle. They reach the level of their incompetence, and there's just a lot of things that Russ doesn't do. One of the things he does do exceptionally well, and it kills your football team, is take sacks. He's so worried about his completion percentage, and he's so worried about things that don't truly matter. They matter in when you look at stats when it comes to Hall of Fame voting, that's what he's concerned about. But what it does is kill your freaking football team. You take 55 sacks a year every year, and 60% of them are your fault. You cannot win in the NFL when your quarterback takes sacks. And in today's game, because all the three-step drops, the quick game, the bubble screens, the swing passes, today's game, sacks are more quarterback-driven statistic than they are an O-line-driven statistic. And Russ he kills his team from his propensity to take sacks on a consistent basis.
All right, so you like the Eagles and maybe both the Commanders and the Cowboys to sneak into the postseason in the NFC East. Now let's go to what I think was probably going to be the most competitive division in football this year. That's the NFC North. And you had those two teams last year, Detroit and Minnesota, that won all those games. Let's start with the Lions, because I think the Lions have done a remarkable job the last couple of seasons under Dan Campbell. But I think they're also going to regress. They've done one thing really well. Last year, they had to deal with expectations, right? After making it to the NFC Championship game the year before, they were the hot team. They played the Chiefs in the season opener in Kansas City and won that game because Kadarius Toney, has these for hands.
Yes.
But you can't lose the coaching staff that they've lost. You can't lose the number of players on the offensive line that they've already lost through free agency and injury this summer, and have that same level of consistency. I think the Lions are going to be a very competitive team because that's what Dan Campbell's culture is all about. I don't know how many games they're going to win this year because I think there's more likely to be, again, a step back from the 15-win season.
I agree with you. I think continuity is so important. I think Ben Johnson, the connection that Ben Johnson had with Jared Goff is next level. The other thing about Ben Johnson is Ben Johnson. I say this about offensive coordinators all the time. There are guys who call plays, and then there are guys who call an offense. Yep. And he calls an offense, and his ability to create favorable matchups, especially in long yardage situations in the run game. Now, part of that is because, Dan Campbell's going to go for it on fourth down, right? So you get these matchups on third down and 6+ or second down and 7+, where you're like, we're foolish not to run the ball here. And so you get these great matchups, and he does an exceptional job of that. So losing him, losing your defensive coordinator as well, like those things matter. And
they do.
One thing I will say about Dan Campbell, and I say it all the time, he plays the role of meathead well, but Dan really knows offense. Like when you sit down and talk to Dan, he knows what he wants. He knows the offensive side of the ball. So I think you'll get great buy-in. You'll get great feedback from Dan Campbell. But again, I think that running game is what sets Jared Goff apart. Jared Goff is exceptional. I call him all the time. He's a top 5 quarterback or top 10 quarterback that nobody talks about. Man, he just plays with fearlessness. There's no window that's too tight for him to throw it into, and a lot of that pressure is taken off of him because they run the ball so well. So we'll see exactly what they become.
Yeah. Okay. Then there's the team that Ben Johnson goes to, Chicago. I really like what they've done this offseason. Again, the Bears are the only team in the NFL that have never had a 4,000-yard passer. They're the only one. Do they get it this year with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams?
I think they do. I did this on the Stinking Truth podcast. I talked to Ben Johnson.
Great podcast, by the way.
Thank you. I did. I talked to Ben Johnson the other day. I texted him 30 seconds later. He texted me back, with a litany of, I was like, hey, man, tell me about Caleb Williams. What are you guys working on? What's going on? And how has he responded? And he gives me this litany. Hey, go check out this play, check out this play, check out this play in these preseason games. And this is what we're working on. And Ben is great that way. But really, it's tying in the footwork. The thing I didn't like about Caleb coming out, and I studied him for 3 games. I really looked at him. I go, that guy plays off schedule, not because he's forced to, because he wants to.
Wants to, yeah.
And you can't win in the NFL that way. It's the Kyler Williams syndrome. I want to make SportsCenter highlights. Bullshit.
Kyler Murray?
Yeah, Kyler Murray. What did I say? Kyler Williams? Kyler Murray.
I'm sure Kyler Williams is a great player. Just never heard.
Yeah, right. I want to make SportsCenter highlights. Bullshit. Boring wins. And, I'm talking to Byron Leftwich. I'm doing a Tampa game when Brady was the quarterback. I said, what sets him apart to Leftwich? And he goes, his ability if they're running a concept where the drag route or the flat route is the first read in the concept, and that flat route's open, regardless of what we're running behind it, Tom Brady will take it 100 out of 100 times and be in second down and 4. And he goes, he has no ego about padding stats or making numbers. It's about, if this is the first read and it's open, I am taking it. What wins in the NFL on a consistent basis is boring.
Yeah.
Boring wins.
Yeah.
Highlights lose you games because you'll make 2 or 3 big time plays when you play off schedule, but you'll make 4 or 5 big time mistakes. And that's what will cost you the game. It's what they always say, more games are lost than won.
Yeah.
It's the way it works. And so we have got to be, as an offense, on schedule. Hey, things are going to break down, and I need a quarterback to slide around in the pocket, make a play, dump one off, throw one out of bounds. Sometimes that's the best play you can make. I don't need you scrambling around all of a sudden taking a 17-yard sack. Like, that will kill your offense, and you won't win that way consistently. But it's exciting to watch, and everybody gets, oh, wow, if we just did this and we just did that. Nope, you can't win that way.
All right, what about the Packers? Once again, they have one of the youngest rosters in football. Jordan Love hopefully is healthy and ready to roll. I think the Packers are one of the more interesting teams in the NFL this year.
I do too, but I'm concerned, like the thumb, and I know it's not the throwing hand, but I'm concerned like that. Like, I always talk about buttons. When you have something like that's injured, it's a button and it gets pushed all the time.
Let's
it's a technical term. Yeah. And so anyhow, I just worry about, like, number one, ball security. And like when rookies or when backup players come into a game, for instance, and have to play in that particular game, one of the big things is ball security that coaches talk about on the defensive side. Hey, young guy or guy that doesn't play a lot, guy that's a backup, hey, let's go after that ball. Swipe at the hands. And when you have an injury, a broken finger or a broken thumb, that thing's going to get swiped at. And so I worry about ball security in the pocket if you got to scramble out all those things with the thumb. But they're young. They're athletic. I think defensively they're better than we give them credit for because we tend to focus on offense and we tend to focus on guys like Love. This is a great division, like not a good division. This is a great division.
Yeah, it is. And then there's the wild card, I think, in this division, which is Minnesota, because they're basically starting a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who's not a rookie, but didn't take a single snap last year because of the injury. No one knows what to expect. We saw what happened with Sam Darnold and those great receivers. But nobody can walk into this situation and say, well, I know what they're going to be, because we have no idea how this kid's going to play. No matter how good he looks in practice, all kind of stuff, it's a completely different dynamic when week 1 rolls around.
100%. And I loved him. Like, I loved him coming out in that he was the one guy under Jim Harbaugh at Michigan that ran the closest to a pro-style offense in college football. It was a pro offense. And so he did things in college that other guys simply didn't do. And so I love that aspect coming out. He hasn't played a lot. And the history would tell you, if you don't play a lot in college, the learning curve is pretty steep when you walk into the NFL. Now, he did get to sit back and watch Sam Darnold orchestrate. And Sam is an interesting case because he got drafted to the Jets, and they were running the Peyton Manning offense. And Kyle Shanahan told me Sam went from the Jets, he went to Carolina. So he did a year of rehab under Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan was like, listen, there's one person on the planet that can run the Peyton Manning offense, and that's Peyton Manning. Like, that's it. Yeah. So you put him in there, like, you're doomed to failure. Then you go to Carolina, and I love Matt Rule, but Matt Rule's a college football coach.
Correct.
And so you're running a college offense. When Matt Rule ended up getting let go his last year in Carolina was the first time in Sam Darnold's career that he ran a progression offense.
Yeah.
And so you look at it and you're like, you got to be kidding me. He's in year 4, right? Or whatever, 3. So then he goes over to San Francisco and really learns offense. And then you see him, coming to Kevin O'Connell, who runs the same offense as Kyle does, just a variation of, personnel and all that kind of stuff. It's the same Sean McVay. He comes from Sean McVay. Kyle and Sean McVay worked under Mike Shanahan, we all know the story. So like Sam Darnold really excelled. It'll be interesting to see exactly, what JJ McCarthy takes off of that. But they're a really good team, really good receiving core, really good under Brian Flores. That defense is ridiculous, really hard to deal with. They're going to have opportunity. We'll see what he becomes, but I don't know. I think that he's going to be okay, but I don't know.
So who are you picking for the crown? You still going with Detroit, or you think Chicago or Green Bay has the opportunity?
I'm still gonna go with Detroit because I still think they're really good. But we always talk about windows, man. That thing seems to be shrinking. Like it just feels like it's shrinking.
So that's what I love about Dan. When they lost the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago, he was like, we'll be back. He's like, I have no idea if we'll be back. Like that's why these things are so important. You have to take the opportunity. I love that approach he took after that loss. Not like we're gonna do this every year. Well, unless you're the Patriots of recent vintage or the current Chiefs, you don't do it every year.
Correct.
So I'm with you. I like the Lions. Okay, now let's go to where we were talking about Sam Darnold went. Let's go to the NFC West. I think this is a fascinating division. I don't know what's going to happen here, and I don't think anybody came with great certainty because of the turnover. And, the only good news for San Francisco is that they didn't lose the Super Bowl to the Chiefs last year. Because the only two times they haven't made the playoffs under Kyle Shanahan is the year after they lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. So that didn't happen this year. So history says they're going to make the playoffs, but there are a lot of question marks going into San Francisco right now that I think are really legitimate.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also think in their mind they have some answers. And I did a game late last year. Now they got to be healthy, man. They're one of the most snake bit
devastated by injuries the last few years. Absolutely.
Yeah. So they got to be healthy. And I don't know if that's a training thing. I really don't know what that is, but sometimes you just snake bit. But I did a game late last year and sitting down with Kyle, and I've known Kyle since he was 12, and and I'm good friends with his father. But I think there was an optimism based on all the injuries they had last year and some of the young players that stepped up and played well for them. Like, I think Pearsall's a guy that has the potential of becoming a really good player for them.
Boy, they're just killed at wide receiver right now.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, they're just devastated at wide receiver.
Yes, constantly. Jennings is like, he's an actuator. We talk about this all the time. The actuator on offense. And that dude plays with nastiness, and he proved – when pressed for service that he could be an X receiver and be productive over there. Defensively, they've got a couple of young guys that they're really counting on that really played well toward the end of last season. So I feel like they feel like, hey man, we answered some questions internally. Maybe the rest of the public doesn't really know these guys, but we feel pretty confident in what we have here. So I like San Francisco to make a rebound, a bounce back. And, again, a lot of that comes down to health, but I think they'll make a bounce back to the playoffs.
Okay. One of the most fascinating teams to me in all of football this year is the Rams. If that divisional round game wasn't played in snow, I think the Rams could have beaten the Eagles in that game.
I'm with you.
And I know it. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. I get it. Right. I understand that. But it took away the thing they wanted to do most. And they still hung into that game to the last few minutes in Philadelphia. My biggest concern, and you can preach on this as well as anyone, I do not like hearing about Matthew Stafford's lingering back issues. Yeah. You had how many surgeries in your career?
29,
right? And you had 16 on one knee?
15 on one, 5 on the other.
Okay, so you had 15 on one knee. You had how many back surgeries?
1.
And what have you told me 100 times again?
I'd take another 20 knee surgeries to give this one back surgery back. My back. It just is like, you can feel great on Friday's practice. You can sneeze going to the game on Saturday and be out. I mean,
So that's my concern, Mark. If Matthew Stafford is healthy, I think they could be the team to dethrone the Eagles. When you add Devontae Adams, so the wide receiving core they got with Puka. Now I get it, Cooper's gone, but I mean Puka became the guy anyway last year. I like their young offensive line. I like their running backs. I love their young defensive players, especially the guys up front. But if you're telling me we got to monitor Matthew Stafford's back all season,
Right.
that I could be out on the Rams just on that news alone.
That's where I'm at. Like, tell me he's going to be healthy. And I talked to somebody in the Rams organization just last week, and they were like, "Oh no, we're really, we're downplaying it, and he's going to be fine." And I'm like,
that's what we heard about Christian McCaffrey going into last season, that he didn't play
right,
for 10
exactly.
weeks. Yeah,
you have that. You have the back. Like I said, man, you're one sneeze away. I mean, it's like getting old. You step off a curb, you could twist your ankle. You sneeze.
I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, damn it!
You sneeze, you throw out your back. I'm one hard fart away from being paralyzed from the neck down. Like it just is.
It would be a really hard fart. Like
right.
That would be significant.
So I'm with you on everything they've done. They have completely revamped the line of scrimmage. It's funny. I was doing a Minnesota game and talking to Kevin O'Connell when he was the first year head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. He goes, "Listen, man, I'm watching Monday Night Football. I flip on Monday Night Football, like between things I'm doing, I'm looking." And he goes, "This is the year after they won the Super Bowl. He becomes the head coach of Minnesota." He goes, "I'm looking up at the television screen, and the 5 guys who are starting for the Rams on offensive line was our 5 scout team players in the Super Bowl, getting us ready." Yeah. And he's like, that's not a good situation, right? Correct. And so they revamped that. Like you talked about, the young defensive players, man, they have gone. Les Snead has done not a good job, but a great job of rebuilding both lines of scrimmage. And one thing I've always said about Sean McVay, he doesn't get the credit he deserves, man. That dude is a big-time run game coach disguised as a spread offense. Yep. And they changed kind of their philosophical approach, if you will, really to match up with San Francisco, because San Francisco used to play them and just beat the tar out of them. I mean, just beat the snot out of them. And anyhow, they changed kind of philosophies, and they've done a really good job with that.
Yeah, I just the Stafford thing scares me to death. Like
me too.
It's like watching Tua play. It's like, was this going to be the hit that's going to knock him out for 6 weeks? You just don't know. And the other 2 teams in the NFC West, I think, are huge question marks. I have no idea what to expect in Arizona, and I really have no idea what to expect in Seattle, because I don't know if Sam in Minnesota is going to make that transition to Sam in Seattle.
Yeah, the one thing I liked about Seattle, and I just kind of got caught up. I don't know why I got caught up. I watched 2 preseason games of Seattle. Why? I don't know. But they got a couple of dudes, man. Like the way they ran the ball.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I think he's a really good defensive coach. Obviously, has had just an unbelievable run. But the way they ran the ball, they got this cat named Oots. Mm-hmm. He's like a 270-pound fullback out of Alabama in the 5th round, who's just been shortening necks. And I was like, that dude, like that's my new favorite player. They ran the ball. They were physical. If they can do that, Sam Darnold can operate in any offense when you give him that, that ability and the play action stuff. So they're kind of a dark horse in this division for me to actually sneak up on a lot of people and maybe compete for a wild card spot, maybe even win the division.
So who, if you had to pick right now, because you have to, who are you taking in the NFC West?
Gosh, probably the Rams.
Really? Even with all that?
Even with all,
the caveat has to be that Stafford is not out 8 games, right?
Yeah, if Stafford misses time, then I'll take the Niners. So, but I think this is a close, super close division. So, and Arizona, as per usual, will be bringing up the rear, I would imagine.
I mean, and just so people understand why Stafford is so important, our crack researcher, whose name escapes me, Chappie, my son, no quarterback has a higher win percentage than Stafford in the months of December, January, and February since he joined the Rams. Okay? Every quarterback with a higher passer rating than Stafford in the playoffs since 2000, minimum 10 games, Patrick Mahomes, Kurt Warner, that's it. Stafford is 3. The only quarterback that has a higher touchdown interception ratio than Stafford last year when he came back from injury week 11 was Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts. That's how good Matthew Stafford is when he's right. Okay? Yeah. So that is the huge thing. Stafford is everything to this team. Everything to this team. When he's there and he's right, he changes everything. Okay, now,
hey, and by the way, people don't. He's like in year 17,
he's
and
amazing.
remember,
he's playing better than he did when he first came out.
He took a beating in Detroit all those early years, so it's a remarkable run he's been on.
All right, let's move to the NFC South, where the Bucs have just owned that thing in a very weak division. I'm assuming you expect that to continue.
Yeah, like a couple of things. Baker Mayfield, him coming back, and I love what he's been able to do with his career.
I agree.
And they took, Jason Light, their GM, took a shot, gave him a, make good, prove yourself deal. He did. They rewarded him. One of the guys, I mean, their receiving core, getting Godwin. I don't know exactly when Godwin will be back, but Godwin coming in there is big time. Mike Evans just continues to dazzle. The one kid, the Bucky Irvin kid, man, watching him play last year, and I was doing a Tampa game where I'm just studying him, and I think that kid could get 80 catches in the slot. Like, he is that versatile a player, plus runs hard. They're clearly the class of that division. They're clearly the only playoff team in that division.
Yeah, I'll say this about Baker. Baker is living proof that just because you suck to start doesn't mean you'll always suck. I mean, think about this for a second with Baker, okay? Number 1 overall pick in Cleveland for a variety of reasons. That didn't work, right? Then he bounces around. He goes to Carolina. And eventually at Carolina, he was lining up as a defensive end on the scout team. That's how far he had fallen. Like, think about that for a second. Then he has that miracle finish in that Thursday night game when Stafford was hurt a couple of years ago for the Rams, and he comes back and beats the Raiders. And that became some interest. And Baker found a home. He found a home in Tampa. And it's just all come together, which I'd love to see for him. The other teams in that division, I have high hopes for Carolina. I think a lot more than some people because of how Bryce Young responded to the benching. Not only mentally, but how he came back and played after the benching. I think that it's salvageable for Bryce in Carolina now.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a certain style with which you have to play, and Ben Canales did that, right? Not Ben Canales, Dave Canales. He did that.
We're just butchering head coaching names right now.
That's all right. It doesn't really matter. Canales did that with getting him out of the pocket, getting him on the run a little bit, using some of the RPOs and some of the zone reads with him in the running game, even though he's a slight kid. He's tiny. Yeah. But they really got out of the pure drop back style and really started moving him around. Now he was capable, and he's a first overall pick out of Alabama, and he ran that. He ran the drop back game, but it just hasn't worked. He's very slight. Getting him out, getting some vision lines, creating some opportunities. And the one thing that Carolina did, and who's their GM? Dan Morgan is
Dan Morgan.
One thing he did, man, he just went out. He drafted tackles. They just signed Moton to a new deal, but he went out in free agency and bolstered the inside of that line of scrimmage to take some pressure off the quarterback. And so I think they really did a good job running the ball, the quarterback design run stuff, the RPO stuff. They really did a great job of saying, okay, let's quit focusing on what our quarterback can't do, and let's start focusing on some of the things he can be successful with. And that really helped Bryce Young in the second part of the season.
Then there's Atlanta. I mean, what we've seen from Michael Penix last year looked good, but I need to see a bigger sample. And Atlanta is, Atlanta.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I look at them and think at some point, even if Michael Penix is good, Atlanta is just going to kind of Atlanta things up. So I just don't have a lot of faith in them.
And then New Orleans has no quarterback, so best of luck. Right?
Yeah,
it's that simple. I know why Kellen took the job because there's only 32 of these things, but boy, he's walking into a tough situation. The first-year head coach there.
I think you have to look at it like, hey, man, we got to change over our roster. We're not going to be good for a couple of years, and then hopefully next year or the year after, we've got an opportunity to draft one of these guys that excels. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, now let's move to the AFC, and we're going to start in the AFC West because obviously that's where the defending AFC champions are, and the team that you're really interested in, the Denver Broncos. I have this incredible hot take. You ready?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks this is the year the Chiefs are going to step back. And to that I say, based on what? Like, based on what are you basing this? Okay. Is Andy Reid still there? Yes. Is Patrick Mahomes still there? Yes. Is Travis Kelce still there? Yes. Is this the deepest wide receiver core that Patrick Mahomes has ever had? The answer to that question is actually yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Even when they had Tyreek Hill, the second option was DeMarcus Cousins or Byron Pringle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Rashee Rice, and he's going to be suspended, but not at least for the first 4 weeks of the season. You've got Xavier Worthy, who came on strong just like Rashee Rice did. You have Hollywood Brown back. I think this kid, Tyquan Thornton, which was a second-round pick a few years ago for the Patriots, is going to blossom in this offense. And you still have everything else. I think people just want the Chiefs to fail, right? I think that's just, we're tired of it because no team has ever gone to 5 Super Bowls in 6 seasons. Nobody. That has never happened, okay? So
I'm in that group. I'm in that group, by the way, that wants the Chiefs to fail. Okay.
I got bad news for you. Pencil them in to the AFC Championship game for the 8th straight year. That's going to happen. They're going to win this division.
Even if they take a step back, they were 15-2 last year. So what are they going to go to 13? Like,
right? They won 15 of the 16 games they tried to win.
Yeah, and then you got a motivated Travis Kelce. By the way, on Travis Kelce's off year, he still caught 98 balls or something.
Yeah, he was terrible last year. No, he really wasn't. He was just, they were a work in progress all year. Now, obviously, the offensive line, this kid out of Ohio State has got to show up because
by the way, was my favorite player coming out.
Yeah,
like I went through and dug through before he tore his patella.
Yeah,
that kid, man, you talk about great feet, great hands, striking people, doing things.
Yeah.
Like I looked at that kid and go, if that kid is right, and the fact that they get him at 31, like that's the steal
top
of the
10
draft.
Pick. If he's healthy, he's a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
there's three GMs I will never question in the draft: Howie Roseman, Brett Veach, and the Ravens. Those are the three. Yeah. Everybody else, I got questions.
DaCosta.
Eric DaCosta. Those three, I trust implicitly. So I still see Kansas City winning the division.
Right. And oh, by the way, you talked about the coach, you talked about Travis, you talked about Patrick Mahomes, you talked about the receiving corps. Spagnuolo is still one of the best defensive coordinators in football, by the way. And they got
the only coordinator with 3 rings.
Yeah, and you got Chris Jones. So yeah, I'm with you. I think the division is tight. I think the Chargers are going to be better. I think the Broncos, the depth of their roster has really gotten good. And and Sean Payton can rub some people the wrong way. I happen to love him, but he's just like, I know what I want. And he works great together with his GM because he says, this is what I want at each position. And, there were a lot of people here in Denver that were up in arms about, they need to get a veteran wide receiver. And they've been like, no, we don't. We got Cortland. We got a bunch of young guys that we believe in, that we think are going to take that next step. They went out and got a tight end and even Evan Ingram. Their defense is, it should be a top 3 defense in football. It's just a matter of, do they solve their issues in the running game? Because they just have not been able to run the ball, and they haven't done it consistently in preseason either. So that'll be the big issue for me in regards to the Broncos.
Yeah, listen, and again, talking about Jaden Daniels, I think it's statistically more likely that Bo takes a step back, kind of like C.J. Stroud. But that defense is so good. Zach Allen, Nick Bonito, those guys are unbelievable interior disruptors. So I do think Denver's the biggest challenge. The Chargers are a concern for me, okay? And here's why. First of all, the loss of Slater is just brutal, just absolutely brutal.
Very.
I need Justin Herbert. I need the promise of Justin Herbert to be delivered. I think he's just talented. I think he's all of those things, but it just never seems to come together. It just never seems to come together. And whether it's injuries or blowing a 27-0 lead or not finding out a way to win that game against the Texans last year, throwing all those interceptions, the promise of Justin Herbert needs to be delivered sooner rather than later.
I agree with you. There's just certain guys, whether we talk about Lamar in the playoffs. We talk about Josh Allen not being able to get over the hump at the Kansas City Chiefs. We talk about the promise of Justin Herbert, and I think he's phenomenal, man. I love watching him play, but nut cutting time. Dude,
results are results.
You gotta perform. You've got to perform. And oh, by the way, Josh Allen has been special in the playoffs. He's been unbelievable. They haven't been able to get over the hump. I put more of that on kind of the coaching, but Herbert just hasn't played very well in the playoffs.
Correct.
And that's the next level, man. I have no doubt that they're going to win a lot of games, and they're going to be in the hunt for that West crown. I don't doubt that Kansas City wins it. I hope they don't, but I don't doubt that they do. But again, it's about performing in those tough environments. Like, one thing we know: don't give Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs the ball last, because you will lose.
You will lose.
You just lose. And we don't know that about, Justin Herbert or anybody else in that division.
Yeah. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift announced Taylor Swift are engaged. So the entire NFL fan base is going to go absolutely bonkers right now.
Wow.
They're going to go bonkers.
Wow.
The world is off their axis for these people. It's true love. And it's beautiful. And you know what? The rest of the NFL, they got to just shake it off. Okay, they just have to shake it off.
I see what you did there. I think that's really good. I just don't like. I had this vision, and my vision is incorrect. But they were going to break up, and she was going to put out an album.
Dissing him completely.
No, yeah, just put it. The album title would have been "Tight Ends and Loose Morals." And so they would have just been, and it would have been the greatest album ever. And now I don't get to see that dream come true.
And then there's the Raiders. Speaking of dreams not coming true, I don't know. Like, Pete Carroll's an upgrade for sure. Geno is an upgrade for sure. Tough division. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
They'll be better, but what's better? They go from 4 wins to 7 wins. Like, correct.
Yeah.
Yay! We almost doubled our win total. Whoop-de-doo, Basil.
Yeah. When something good happens to the Raiders, we'll talk about it. But I need to see something good happen to the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Now let's move to the other most competitive division, I think, in football, which is the AFC North. Okay. Looks like the Cincinnati Bengals front office finally pulled their heads out of their asses and signed Trey Hendrickson. So you have the Joe Burrow and that company all set up now, ready to roll. But they got to start faster. Okay, like, all the Bengal fans were bitching about the Chiefs laying down for the Broncos. Well, don't start 0-3, because here's a really interesting, cool fact that you may not know, Mark Schlereth. Mm-hmm. The games in September count as much as the games in January and December in the regular season. Okay?
It's kooky that way.
It's
kooky
nuts.
That way.
They don't add an extra win total if you win a game in December and not in September. Don't start 0-2 like you have for the last 3 years. Start better, right? That's everything for Cincinnati. Come out of the gate as if September games fucking matter.
Yeah. I don't like Cincinnati. And I think Joe Burrow is arguably the best quarterback in football.
I think you're right there.
And I don't like the way they're constructed. I don't like that they put 100% of the onus on Joe Burrow. Like, he plays – you ever stand on the high dive? You look from the pool, you look up at the high dive and go, oh, it's not that high. And then you stand on top of the high dive and your knees are knocking. You're like, holy shit, that's way up here.
Yeah.
Like, they make Joe Burrow play that way.
Yeah.
And, one of the things, it's interesting, like, the nature of complementary football. And, like, I get that you want to score. I get that points, are important. But possession, when you have a defense that, people run through like shit through a goose, like, possession is important. Keeping those guys off the field is important. And they don't seem to understand the importance of, your offense possessing the ball so your defense doesn't have to be on the football field. That's part of the issue. Right. Yeah. And so I just don't like the way they're constructed. Joe Burrow's phenomenal. Jamar Chase is incredible. T. Higgins they got big time players. There's no question, but they'll put Joe Burrow on that high dive. He'll take 8 sacks and he'll get hit. And I just really, they're being shotgun 90% of the time. I just don't think it's an efficient way. And their offensive coordinator, by the way, Trey, came out this offseason and goes, hey, we're going to have to do outscore people. Hey, how'd that work for you last year?
Not great, Bob.
Yeah. You outscored a lot of people. You still weren't very good.
Yeah. All right. So also in that division, you have, I think, one of the most complete teams in football, the Ravens. I think there's more pressure on Lamar Jackson than any player in football right now, because as well as they dominate in the regular season, and look, statistically, he probably had a better year than the MVP in Josh Allen. I mean, if you're a Ravens fan, I get why you're upset that Lamar didn't win the MVP. He's got to play the entire regular season knowing it doesn't matter, because it's going to come down to what happens in the playoffs. And that is very difficult. That is a very difficult thing. We'll go 15-2, 14-3, 13-4, and no one cares unless you can play better in the postseason.
Yeah. And you know, the crazy thing is, and you'll get the Lamar stands coming after you for saying that, because I did it last year and they just went off on me. And the thing that's been interesting is Lamar has played better in the playoffs the last couple of years. His first couple of his first 8 playoff games, he was awful, but he has played better. It's been more about Baltimore getting into the playoffs and losing sense of their identity. The way that Baltimore wins games, I think they've got one of the most complete rosters. Obviously, they've got a quarterback that can throw it, but he can run it. He's such a threat, and that's what you're so concerned about. And they bludgeon people. And so when they get up by 7, you feel like on the other sideline, you feel like you're down by 21, because they just don't give you, like, they control the pace of the game. This is kind of what I was talking about with Cincinnati. They control the pace of the game. In an average game, you get 12 possessions. And so all of a sudden you're midway through the second quarter, Trey, and offensively you've had 2 possessions.
Yeah.
And then you get going, you're like, oh shit, man, we're only going to get the ball maybe 7 or 8 times. Now we got to score on every possession to keep pace. And so then it takes you out of your game plan, right? You start throwing the ball and doing things you normally wouldn't do. They create some turnovers. Next thing you know, you're looking at the wrong end of a blowout.
Yeah.
They get into the playoffs and it almost is like, let's match Kansas City throw for throw. Like, no, let's not match Kansas City. No. Let's just bludgeon people. Let's outduel
Josh Allen. Be who you are.
No, exactly. Adhere to your identity and believe in what you do. It's good enough to win you 14 regular season games. It's good enough to get you to a Super Bowl. I'm with you, man. Baltimore, they're my pick to go to the Super Bowl. They have to. They have to.
They do.
Play that way.
And then there's the Steelers. And listen, the signing of Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year contract was the most perplexing thing I saw all offseason. Do the Steelers believe they're in a 1-year championship window? Do you believe that? I mean, I don't think anybody outside of Pittsburgh does.
Right.
I don't see it. Like, I don't understand what's the benefit of bringing in Aaron Rodgers for 1 year if you're not a team that has I guess if you're Pittsburgh, you have to believe that. They're at best the 3rd best team in their own division going into the season.
Yeah, I could see them being the 2nd best team. I think Arthur Smith really understands how to run the ball. I love the 2 tight end sets and all that stuff. And toward the end of the season, Aaron actually played really well toward the end of the season. I did one of his games. But the bottom line, Trey, was awful early. And I know he had an ankle and he had a knee and he had a hamstring. But that's what happens when you're 41. When you're 41, you get a hamstring and an ankle and a knee and all those things. And I will tell you this.
And you've sold your soul to Satan. That's what happens. Yeah.
I will say this, man.
It was you just borrowed to Satan.
Yeah.
You didn't sell it.
I'm standing on the field. I was doing a Jets Jacksonville game. Friends and family only. And and I'm watching the quarterbacks warm up, and I'm watching Aaron throw the ball. And I'm watching the other 25-year-olds on the field throw the ball. Dude, it is night and day. The way he spins it, the way it comes out of his hand. I'm like it was the old Sesame Street. There's one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy I was like, holy Moses.
But see, here's the problem with that, right? Tiger Woods can hit every shot on the range. He just can't walk a golf course anymore.
Yeah.
That's what it is. John Daly once said if Tiger would take a golf cart, he'd win 3 times a year on the PGA Tour. But he won't do it because he doesn't want to. Aaron Rodgers can sit and throw the ball all he wants, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to run around. Someone's got to hit him. and it's going to feel a lot differently than it will for those 25-year-olds. And that's the difference. That's the difference.
Exactly.
And then there's the stinking pile of dung that is the Cleveland Browns organization. I expect nothing from them, and I'm assuming you don't expect anything from them.
No. I expect them to have a very high draft pick in next year's draft. That's what I expect.
And for Kevin Stefanski's sake, I hope he's there to use it. By the way, Joe Flacco was absolutely the right call. Don't at me. He's their only chance to win. And if they start 1-5, which they could be with that first 6-game schedule, then put in some of the younger players. Joe Flacco has to be the starter of the season. Period. End of discussion.
Agreed.
AFC East, it's a Buffalo runaway, right? It's a Buffalo runaway. There's no one there. This is very much similar to the Tom Brady New England years. There is not a serious contender in that division to stopping the Buffalo Bills.
The Buffalo Bills have won 5 straight AFC East titles. This will be their 6th year in a row winning the AFC East. And that year, right, it's a runaway. Obviously, quarterback is awesome. I love Brandon Beane, their GM. Like, there was so much, oh no, Stephon Diggs, what are we going to do? And he's like, we're going to become more a balanced team. And, really interesting, man. I sat down with Joe Brady years ago. He was coaching at Carolina, Trey, and offensive coordinator. Sat down with him coming from that college game. We kind of talked about with this
got that job
Kingsbury. Yeah. And just not understanding the difference between how you run the spread at LSU and going with Matt Rule and trying to run that offense and really trying to sit down with him. We probably talked for 30 minutes before the game just about the stretch zone and running the football in professional football, and to watch him kind of watch that staff get fired, to watch him go back and kind of work through the ranks, and to see what he did with Josh Allen, with the running game. James Cook goes for 16 TDs last year. It's real, and to see that kind of go more from this spread offense where Josh is completely in control to, hey, we're going to run the ball and we're going to be more balanced and we're going to do some things with some receivers that you probably have never heard of, and we're going to be fine. Give a lot of credit to McDermott, their head coach, to Beane, their general manager, to Joe Brady, their OC.
Is this the year it implodes for Mike in Miami? It feels like they're teetering on the brink of this whole thing falling apart.
I had my concerns. Now, Mike was, Coach Capri Pants was my ball boy in Denver.
I know.
And I had concerns last year when he had the brilliant idea of starting the meetings at 24 after, because we haven't won a playoff game in 24 years.
That'll fix it.
You had me at hello. Like, I just was like, oh my gosh, if I was in that locker room.
Let's remind everybody of our failures on a daily basis.
Right. But if I was in that locker room, I'm like, this is what you think is going to win us football games.
Is what it is.
Yeah. I just like, you've lost me, man. You have completely lost me. Get out of here with that garbage.
And then the whole Tyreek situation feels like it's going to boil over again this year. And
absolutely.
Again, watching Tua on every play like this, it just doesn't feel good. And as far as the Jets and the Patriots, do something and we'll talk about it, right? I mean, that's just, let's be honest. Do something and we'll talk about it. They both look like hot messes.
Hey, listen, I think Mayo got a raw deal with New England.
Correct, but
that's really tough.
I love Vrabel.
But Vrabel just understands, man. You win football games, especially when you got young players, at receiver, young player, quarterback, and all that stuff. You win in the line of scrimmage. That's how you win. I mean, they went to a bunch of playoffs and went to an AFC championship. No offense to Ryan Tannehill, but Ryan Tannehill was their quarterback. Like, I just offended him. But you know what I'm saying. Like, because they knew what it took inside to get that done. I love Vrabes. I love the way he coaches. They'll be better, but they're not, going to be ready for primetime, I don't believe.
And we saved the AFC South for last for a very big reason, because it is I got nothing. Like, okay, by law, one team from the AFC South will be represented in the postseason. That's the best I can give anybody.
Yeah. I like Houston's defense. I like CJ Stroud. I like new offensive coordinator. Jacksonville's interesting to me. I've got Jacksonville week 1 of the season. The Travis Hunter thing is really interesting to me.
Well, much, but let's be honest, Steve. Much in the same way it's time for the promise of Justin Herbert to be delivered. Trevor Lawrence, play like you were the consensus number 1 overall pick, because you haven't. You just haven't.
So when I watch Trevor Lawrence, there are throws he makes, Trey, that I'm like, oh my gosh, that was freaking unbelievable. And there's throws he makes where I'm like, are you sure you're right-handed? How did that happen? Like, how did that
I'm
one?
not left-handed.
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that Liam Cohen came in and said, man, we got to clean up his footwork. His footwork was, and how, I mean, I don't know how your footwork gets atrocious, but it was the footwork.
The NFL, by the way, is now pushing out push notifications about the engagement, just so you know. There we go.
Oh, good.
That's going to make so many NFL fans so happy.
I cannot wait. Hey, man. Hey, she's good for the NFL.
She is. I don't want to hear any other arguments about it. Like, just shut up. She's good for the NFL.
She's way more interesting. Hey, she's way more interesting than the AFC South, by the way.
Correct. If you don't like it, then don't look for the 37 seconds when they show her in cutaways. Okay? Yeah. It's that simple. It's not a huge deal. Okay, so NFC champion, who do you think?
I think NFC man. I would go the Rams if it wasn't for Stafford's back. I'm going to go back to Philadelphia.
All right. I will ride that train with you, with the caveat that if Stafford's back is good, I think they can beat anybody. I'm picking the Chiefs in the AFC because they've never not made it to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
If they go this year, they'll tie the Patriots' record of 8 straight appearances. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think you're going with Baltimore, right?
Yeah, I'm going with Baltimore, yep.
All right, so you're going Baltimore and the Eagles. Who wins?
I'm going to take Baltimore. Baltimore wins their first Super Bowl since, 2012 or whatever it was?
Their last Super Bowl win was Super Bowl 47, 34-31 over the 49ers. That was the blackout game at the Superdome.
Yeah, I was there. I experienced the blackout.
I did too. Well, you experienced a lot of blackouts when you played, but that's a separate issue entirely. I'm going to go with Kansas City and Philadelphia in a rematch, and I'll say Kansas City wins just because I want to piss people off.
All right. Well, good for you.
But actually, that's not true. I really believe it. I really believe it.
I don't.
Beat them. Somebody beat them.
You know what's crazy? What's crazy is I want to hate them so bad, and it's fabricated hate because I love watching Patrick Mahomes play. I love watching Andy Reid coach. I love the stuff he does at the goal line. It's just like, wow, how do you think of that? And then I love Spags. Spags is a great dude, and I love watching them. I have so much respect for how good they are, and I so bad want them to lose every single game.
Not gonna.
But I don't hate them.
No, you don't hate them. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our 2025 season preview. All right, I got bad news for Eagles fans and fantasy football managers, okay? Do not expect another dominant season from Saquon Barkley. And you're saying, Trey, how can you say that? They have a loaded team. They have arguably the best offensive line in football. He's healthy. Why not? History. For more on this, we're joined by Mark Schlereth. Mark, not only did Saquon become the 9th member of the 2,000-yard club last season, when he could have had a chance to break the record set by Eric Dickerson, but he didn't play in the regular season finale, and that was the right call. I will die on that hill because it ended with the Super Bowl championship for the Eagles. He's the first 2,000-yard rusher to then have to play 3 playoff games after that season. All right? You know what it's like to block for a 2,000-yard rusher. Can you explain to people, just from a standpoint of physicality, what that does to somebody when they go into the next season? Because I have the numbers.
Yeah, it wears you out. And obviously, the other thing you have to understand is to get to that level, it's not usually right out the gate, right? It's not like, hey, my first year, I'm a rookie and I go for 2,000 yards. You have to learn the pace of running in the National Football League. You have to learn that it's not college. You can't break them out all the time. You got to take those nasty 2, 3, 4-yard runs. Mike Tomlin said this to me in a meeting, and it stuck with me. It resonated with me. Talking about the running game, he goes, not every meal is a smorgasbord. Sometimes you got to eat an appetizer.
Yep.
And you have to eat appetizers. And the appetizers are the things that wear you out, not the 70-yard run. It's those 2-yard runs. And look at the Super Bowl. Like, I love the attempts they got him, but Saquon averaged about 2.6 yards per carry in the Super Bowl.
The Chiefs were determined to not let Saquon beat them, and they didn't. And Jalen Hurts said, I'll do it.
Yeah, and so they did a really good job with that. But those are the runs, the cumulative damage that you do to your body in those mosh pit piles, right? You're taking shots, you're doing all that stuff. And so normally for a guy, when he hits 2,000, there's a culmination of not only we're good up front, but I have really learned like where my entry point is, where the mesh point is, what the weakness and the strength of this defense is. And now I adjust as a running back, right? And so you've already taken a beating. Like Terrell Davis, when I blocked for Terrell, his first year, he went for 1,100 yards. His second year, he went for 1,400 yards. His third year, he went for 1,700 yards. Then his fourth year, we got him to 2,000. And then the next year, he tears his ACL and he's never the same. It just is that it's that cumulative wear and tear as you're learning like NFL blocking schemes and what you have to do and you're picking your spots and you're doing all that stuff. That just takes its toll on your body. And especially when you go all the way to the world championship and you win a Super Bowl, man, you're playing an extra month over everybody else. It does wear you out.
Listen, again, this show is about data. It's not about opinions. It's not about what we think. It's about what happens. Okay, so I'm going to read to you again. Saquon is the 9th member of the 2,000-yard club. Here are the previous 8 members of the 2,000-yard club and what happened the year after they ran for 2,000 yards. We'll start with the first one. OJ, just talking football. After his 2,000-yard season in 14 games, so by far still the greatest single rushing season in the history of the NFL. I will not entertain any other things. 2,003 yards in 14 games. So just
crazy. Crazy.
In 74, he rushed for 1,125. But here's where the biggest difference is for me. His 2,000-yard rushing season, he averaged 6 yards a carry. 74, the next year, 4.2. The next one's Eric Dickerson. In 1984, he set the record. What did he do in 1985 after 2,100 plus in 84? In 85, he ran for 1,200 yards, 1,234. But he went from 5.6 yards a carry to 4.2. The next was Barry Sanders, okay? After his 97 season, in 98, he ran for 1,481 yards, still very good, but his yards per carry went from 6.1 to 4.3. 6.1 to 4.3. And then the next year, the Lions got to him and he quit. Then the next guy in the list is your guy, TD. Shout out for Matt Lepsis for cutting his ACL and an interception return. He went from 5.1 to 3.1 and only played 3 games because he tore his ACL on someone on an interception return, basically. So that's what happened there. Jamal Lewis, the next one. He ran from 2000 to 2003. In 2004, barely over 1,000 yards, 5.3 versus 4.3. Chris Johnson ran for 2,000 yards in 2009, 5.6 yards per carry. The next season, 4.3. Adrian Peterson in 2012 almost set the record. 2013, 1,286 yards, 6 yards per carry, down to 4.5 yards per carry. And Derrick Henry in 2021 only played 8 games because of injury, went from 5.5 yards a carry to 4.3 yards a carry. So if you are an Eagles fan, or if you are someone drafting Saquon number 1 overall in your draft, understand you're not getting what you saw last year. It is not going to happen. All the data says you're probably going to run for a yard and a half less per carry. Per carry. And that is a significant thing. And that's why I believe in Howie Roseman. He probably knows this. And so that's why he's already doing all these moves. He knows they're not going to have the same explosive type plays, which separated them because of Saquon last year. They're going to have to do it a different way. You're not going to get that same kind of season from Saquon Barkley. You're just not going to, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think there's some unwritten things that happen too that nobody will talk about throughout the NFL. But when you get a 2,000-yard rusher and you dominate like the Philadelphia Eagles did, they tend to start scrutinizing some of your blocking schemes.
Correct.
And I just remember after Terrell's, 2,000-yard season in 1999, things that used to not get called holding got called holding on run plays, and some things that we used to like. Well, that's standard operating procedure. It did feel like, it did feel like the NFL kind of ratcheted some things down on us a little bit. Like, some of the things you guys are doing, you're not going to get to do those things anymore. So I do feel like there's some of that. Obviously, everybody has all the film, all the teams have all the film. Like, there's a bunch of teams you didn't play. So the teams this year coming into it are going to look at that tape that Kansas City put together in the Super Bowl to shut you down there. Like, everybody tries to do it. He'll still pop some big runs. He'll still do those things. But I'm 100% with you, man. Just the wear and tear, the adjustment the rest of the league makes, the league adjustment, on things you could get away with that you're not going to get away with this year. All those things factor into those, that decline in yards per carry status.
And again, I think it's really important to point out none of those other 2,000-yard rushers made it to the Super Bowl. So not only are we talking about the wear and tear of a 2,000-yard season, we're talking about 3 extra games that Saquon Barkley had to play. So all that data putting in, what would you consider a successful season for Saquon Barkley as a player?
Oh, I'm telling you,
1,500 yards, 1,400 yards?
Yeah, if you're around 12 to 1,400 yards, somewhere in there, like, that's what, like, to me, that was, you're still running the ball effectively. You're still setting up your play action. You're still setting up your ability to have your quarterback be involved in the run game on the zone read stuff, because you're still such a prominent player. Like, all that stuff is important. So he does 1,300 yards next year and 9 TDs or whatever. That's going to be that. They'll be right back in the thick of things.
Yeah, and again, we want to be clear. We're not saying Saquon is going to be a worse player. We're not saying Saquon has declined. We're saying it's inevitable based on the data. We don't do feelings here. We don't do hot takes or this is what I think because it will engage people. That's not what we're doing. We're just telling you the data. All the data tells you that the numbers for Saquon are going to go down. So plan accordingly and adjust accordingly. And that is just straight facts, homie. Straight facts.
You got it, buddy.
All right, so for a majority of this summer, the other conversation has been about the Dallas Cowboys for a variety of reasons. The fact that Micah Parsons remains unsigned, the fact that the Cowboys documentary came out and it captured a lot of attention. But it's also because Jerry Jones says things. And we need to look at this objectively, not subjectively, when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. As an owner, in terms of being good for business, Jerry is a prince. The Cowboys when the Lakers were sold for $10 billion, Jerry Jones was saying to himself, 15. And he'll probably get it if the Jones family ever decides to sell the team, because not only does he own the team, he owns the stadium. That is a huge part of their value. Let's be clear about that. They own the building. Jerry did it himself. Oh, by the way, note to all the NFL rich owners who are multi hundreds of $1 million, you can do that too. You don't need taxpayer money to do it. Fund it yourself and look at the valuation Jerry gets in the long run. He gets to keep all the money because he owns the stadium. If you're really that good at business, follow Jerry's model in terms of how to make the business more successful, and you'll make more money, which is what most of you only care about anyway. The point being, Jerry is a marvelous owner. He has found a way to keep the Cowboys relevant. He's found a way to keep the Cowboys flush with cash. He has found a way for them to capture our national attention. I don't care what team you follow. The Cowboys are ratings gold for 2 reasons. People love them and they love to hate them. And Jerry has exhibited his ability to do that and know that perfectly over his tenure as the Cowboys owner since 1989. There's no denying that Jerry Jones is a fabulous owner. But here's the other thing you can't deny. He might be the worst front office / general manager / player personnel executive the league has ever seen. Okay? Jerry's success came from Jimmy Johnson and Jimmy Johnson's ability to grind players and figure out how to draft players. That's just the truth. Okay? The Cowboys won 3 Super Bowls in the 90s, first team to win 3 in 4 years. Then free agency picked them apart. I will die on this hill that the 92 Cowboys that beat the Buffalo Bills 52-17 were the deepest team in the history of the NFL. Go look at how many players from that first team eventually got picked off and taken somewhere else, okay? And then Jerry is a marketing genius. He created the idea of not only do we have league rules where everybody collects this pie, split it up 32 ways among the teams for, the soft drink associated with the NFL, the pizza of the NFL. Jerry, and to Robert Kraft's credit, backed him on this, was able to say, that's fine, but in our stadium, we can do whatever we want. There was a $1 billion lawsuit, a $300 million lawsuit. They eventually settled because Jerry, when the owners realized he's making them all more money. So you get to double dip. You get the league split 32 ways, and then you can market your team any way you want at your stadium and make all kinds of more money for you, the owner, which is, again, what most of you want to do. Fantastic record. Jerry is the worst as a general manager, the absolute worst. It's not a debate, okay? Here are the numbers. The Dallas Cowboys have not won a division round playoff game in 30 years. We are now playing for Super Bowl 60 to start this season. The Cowboys' last Super Bowl appearance was Super Bowl 30 when the Arizona Cardinals played at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe, Arizona. I know, I was there, okay? The NFL has changed dramatically. The only thing that hasn't changed is the Cowboys' ability to win a playoff game, which is negligible. They have not won a divisional round game in 30 years. Now, let me ask you a question. What owner would put up with that kind of incompetence from their general manager? The answer is nobody, unless the owner is also the general manager. And therein lies the problem. Jerry's never going to fire himself. And at 82, he is dug in, much in the same way he's dug in on this situation with the Micah Parsons contract. And we'll get into that in a second, because this is another failure of Jerry that is blatant and obvious to see. I want Jerry to have success. He wants another Super Bowl before he passes. I hope he gets it, but he's never going to get it if he's the general manager. No other general manager would still have a job after 3 decades of not winning a divisional game. And in the documentary, which might have well been titled America's Team, but really it's Jerry, Let Me Say More. That's the real title of that documentary. There was a clip at one point where he said, don't think I'm not capable of getting out of my comfort zone. Jerry, get out of your comfort zone. Fire yourself. It's the only way the team is going to get better. Let somebody else come in and do the job. And he was asked that once on a radio station a couple of years ago, and he got really upset, really pissy about it. He said, well, let me ask you a question. If I bring in a general manager and he has this idea for a trade or a player they want to sign, who do you think is going to have to sign off on that? That's me. I'm going to be involved with the decision at the end. And I'm like, yeah, that's the problem. Okay? There's an old line. Players play, coaches coach, and owners own. And when owners try to become coaches, then we have issues. And Jerry, I know you played at Arkansas with Jimmy. I know all of that. You're not Jimmy Johnson when it comes to evaluating talent. I got 30 years of data on that. Not 5 years, not 10 years. I got 30, okay? And now let's talk about contractual situations that you've created for yourself. The reason you had to pay Dak Prescott so much money is because you had to sign Ezekiel Elliott to a contract first. You signed him before you signed your quarterback, which then allowed Amari Cooper to leave, and he and Dak had his unbelievable chemistry, but you couldn't pay him because of the contract you signed Ezekiel Elliott to, okay? So now you're in this situation with Micah Parsons, and you are dug in. He is dug in. We don't know how this is going to play out as we're taping this episode, but here's another problem that you have created for yourself. Jerry has gone on Michael Irvin's show, and I think also with Stephen A., and basically threw the agent under the bus and has said, we had a deal in place. And then he went in with this really cute, homey story, which Jerry likes to do, talking about a kid. And the kid goes, Mama, can I have some candy? And the mom says no. And then the kid runs to Daddy and says, Daddy, can I have some candy? And the dad says, sure, son. And then the son goes back to the mama and says, Daddy said it was okay. And it's a great, wonderful, homey story that hits a lot of things. And it's bullshit. Okay? Here's why. Because I was listening to Sirius XM NFL Radio the other day, and Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller were doing a great job of explaining the Cowboys cap situation. All right? And they said, it really makes more sense to sign Micah next year instead of this year. And their reasoning was really sound. Because when you sign a player to a long-term contract extension, that first year, most of the salary is in a massive signing bonus of a ridiculous amount of money. And that lowers the cap hit in that first year. And normally in a 4 or 5 year contract extension or new contract, the balloon payment goes up huge in the second year. Well, next year, you have Dak with a balloon payment on his contract. CeeDee Lamb, whom they just signed, has a huge cap hit next year. So Pat Kerwin, who does a great job of breaking this stuff down, said it actually makes more sense for Jimmy to sign Micah next year, tag him this year, and sign him going into next year. And that would make sense, because otherwise, if you signed him this year, those three players, Dak, CeeDee, and Micah, they would account for over 50% of the cap if Micah signs this year. Three players, 50% of your cap. So if that's the logic, if that's the thinking, it makes all the sense in the world. But Jerry has already told you that's not what he's thinking. Because those interviews where he told that great homie story about the kid playing one against the other for the candy, he said basically, we had a deal in place. We had agreed on compensation. We had agreed on years. We had agreed on everything. And then the agent, David Mugoletta, who, by the way, is the best agent in football. His track record is undeniable. Jerry said the agent came back and, using his words, told them to shove it up their ass. Well, I guarantee you, David Mugoletta did not say that. He might have said, hey, I want to talk about this or talk about something. And then Jerry went on to another homespun story about, when I make a deal, I want to look the player in the eye and shake hands and make a deal with that player. And Micah won't talk to me. Yeah, because he has an agent. And that's the way you do business. You talk to the agent. Jerry wants to talk to the player instead of talking to the player's agent, which, by the way, is not the way this works. That's a separate issue entirely. But most importantly, Jerry told on himself. If his plan was, which would have been the logical plan, to tag Micah this year and then pay him next year, he never would have said to Michael Irvin or to Stephen A. Smith, we had a deal in place. Everything was good until the agent came and fucked it up. So that leaves us one of two options. Either Jerry is lying or Jerry did not understand that maybe it would be better to sign him next year instead of this year because of the balloon payment and how much of a cap hit that would be. Either way, it's terrible for the Dallas Cowboys. You've got an owner who thinks he's the best general manager in the game, when in reality, he's 32 out of 32. He can't get these things done in a timely fashion. He can't get them done in a way that benefits the team, and he can't get them done in a way that fits into the structure under the salary cap. And I want to be clear as I can about this. Jerry is a remarkable, unique human being in the history of the NFL. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame for a reason. He did all these wonderful things. He made the league better. He strengthened the league. He made the product better. Except his own product is not good. There's a reason Jimmy Johnson was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame before he was inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Think about that for a minute. The league said, Jimmy, you're one of the few of the few, one of the most creative, smart, incredible coaching minds we have ever seen. You're in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the most exclusive club in the history of this little game we call the NFL. He got there before Jerry Jones decided to honor him for building the team that won back-to-back Super Bowls under Jimmy, and really was the reason Barry Switzer was able to hang on with Jimmy's players and win a third Super Bowl in 4 years. That tells you everything you need to know about who Jerry is, what his priorities are, and where he falls short. He has made a fortune for himself. He has made a fortune for his family. He has made the NFL so much more money than arguably any other owner in the history of the NFL, but his product is terrible. Jerry, in that documentary, you talked about, you hit that gusher, and you knew when you hit that gusher, you had the money to buy your dream, the Dallas Cowboys. As a general manager, You've been sucking on a dry well for 30 years. How much longer as an oil man would you believe there's oil in that well, where for 30 years, you've got nothing but dust coming out of it? It is time for you to take a step back. You never will, but it's been that time for a long time. The team will never be better until you do. And that is straight facts, homie. Hey, this is really exciting for us. My thanks to my friend Mark Schlereth for joining us on our inaugural venture. We're going to be here doing this all season long. We got a million other things planned. Make sure you like and subscribe and tell your friends about it, because we are the no bullshit people here. We're going to tell you the truth based on information and facts, not on feelings or opinions. It is what we do, and we can't wait to share this journey with you. Thanks for being here.